So here we have a family heirloom. By family heirloom, I don't actually mean a family heirloom. More, it was Hannah's dad, Eric's, or Rick's. This is his machete. And he has a nice big cut on his finger from it, which makes me happy. So I thought I'd restore it to former glory a little bit. It's just a big hack job piece of metal. I'm going to try and take off as much as the rust as I can. I'm probably going to cut back a couple of mil off it. And then rehandle it. This feels like an old Bakelite handle. I'm going to try rehandling it and then give it to him. So hopefully he doesn't chop his fingers off. Hopefully in time for him to go away. He's the best guy on a big trip around Australia. There's nothing you need more than when you're 6'8" than to carry a machete as well. Well, hopefully it'll work. So here we have some time-lapse footage of me trying to take the blade apart to start with. And again, I've not done this before, so I was trying to work out a lot of what to do as we went. Just trying to find something fine to knock out the brass pins. Couldn't do that, so I went and found myself the old whack-a-mole screwdriver, a big hammer, and just tried to find various spots to put the blade and knock out the brass pins, get rid of that Bakelite handle that was getting in the way. It was old and broken and busted, years of abuse. This blade, I think we found this in my father-in-law's dad's old camper van. So yeah. Anyway, I didn't have most of my tools for this sort of work set up, so I had to actually screw them down to the bench as I was working. I'll have to take them off again because I mostly do woodworking. I don't tend to work with metal. And I just took it to the grinder to find out how bad the rust was on the back, neaten up the back, and then I started on the whole idea of getting rid of the rust. Found an old metal brush disc, lots of dust stirred up, so I got out the old dust extraction and just got rid of a lot of that rust out of the pits. Then set up the belt sander to sort of even it out, make it as flat as I possibly could. Just whack the belt sander upside down in the bench vise, and away we went. Sanded that down for a while until I got until I was pretty sure I got rid of all the major rough stuff that was getting in the way, and it was starting to look a lot better. Then I got out some WD-40, some wet and dry sandpaper. Whacked that down on a big flat block of wood so I wasn't bending the blade, and just worked at it for ages. Went through various grits, went through 60, 120, 240. I think I even had to go at it with some 400 wet and dry, and I just worked that blade. I mean, these time lapses are, represent probably about 45, 50 minutes of just sanding. Really, the time lapse doesn't really do it justice. It's not 2 by, guys. It's like 15, 20 by. Now the sanding disc was kind of handy, but the problem with that is I had to keep the blade stuck down. So I actually got out my drill and put a couple of screws through it into the wood through the pre-existing holes. Now it had a lot of pitting on the edge of the blade as well that I had to get rid of. So I was just working at the blade for a long time. Just so if you're going to do this by hand or by machine, it's going to take a while. The Jimmy DiResta videos don't do it justice. So here we are, day 2 of Rick's machete. Just get it out of the vise here so I can show it to you. You can see the blade's a lot cleaner but very pitted. But kind of like the look of that. And you can see the old marking just there ever so slightly. Looks like an old army one. Some spots it's gotten pretty clean, but that's because I had less rust there. Everywhere else you can see it's pretty dang pitted. It seems like it'll be okay. I've glued on a new wooden grip. I used the old brass pins just because I didn't have any brass pins lying around, but I've used a polyurethane based adhesive glue, liquid nails they call it here in Australia, to glue that on, and I'm just currently shaping it with a rasp. I've still got to do the back side of the handle. Over here I have the beast's sheath. It doesn't look like much, looks like a plank at the moment, doesn't it? So currently it is a bit of a plank. You can kind of see the lamination there. So basically 2 thin pieces of wood that and another block down the bottom here just to hold the blade in. I'll go over the table saw, I'll chop this end off. I'll find the right depth for the blade as well as I go through, because I can easily see where the bottom is based on that little piece there. So I can just hold the blade up against the edge and see what I've got going on there. It's already claimed some blood, this blade and this wood. You can see my blood right there. The joy of working with things. The whole package though is quite hefty because it's a heavy metal machete, and I've got about maybe 15 mil worth of hardwood on there, but I'm going to shape that down, kind of round out the edge here. I can't cut too deep because these pieces, like this whole overall width compared to the machete, is not much wider, as you can see from that. So I'm aiming to round this off a lot, hopefully take out a bit of the weight. That should hopefully neaten it up, as well as I'll make it look nice. I'm not sure if I'll oil this or varnish it. I might oil it because it's going to be out bush and that sort of thing, and a bit of oil will look good, and it can be easily reapplied. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see how we go with the shaping of the handle. It's starting to come along. It'll require a good bit of sanding. The back needs rounding out. Up in the top edge of the blade, I need to clear out some of the glue. I need to even it up. It's not quite the same thickness on both sides yet. It's getting pretty close though. The Raspberry's doing good work. Then once that's done, I'll give Rick a buzz and say, hey, come and chop your finger off. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing this little knick-knacky project.
Knick-knacky project indeed. So continue to sand and sand and sand. And now anyone who tells you that any project doesn't require a lot of work is a fool and a liar. So I went through like 3 or 4 different levels of file. Really coarse one just to get the major shapes in play, then some slightly more fine ones, and then of course 60 grit sandpaper to just take off all the really rough edges. And then I went through the finer grits of sandpaper down, or rather up from 60, 120, 240. I didn't bother going up to 320 since it's an implement of destruction. Applied a bit of 320 to the handle. The handle feels really smooth now. The other thing I did with the handle is I did grind off the, you can see on the edge of this, there's a bit of metal showing through the wood. I actually cut the metal down so that it actually all fits in the handle, and you'll see that towards the end. But sand, 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 sand. Lots and lots of sanding.
Alright, so a lot of sanding later. This handle feels amazing. As far as I can tell, it's Vic Ash Tassie Oak type wood that I've used, which I inherited from Eric's father out of his basement. I have a lot of it around there, and I think you can see that all too well. The handle feels great, and the wood for the sheath, scabbard, whatever you want to call it, it's quite good. So that kind of locks in place there like that. Doesn't come out too easy, but it doesn't come out difficult either, so it'll work pretty well. Can't punch any holes in it to like string it up or hook it up or anything like that, because the full blade width comes out of the end there. I might be able to get away with a hole like right on the very edge here, but anyway, looks a bit like a cricket bat. I took it and I thinned it out on the table saw at a bit of an angle, but it looks a bit like a cricket bat. But that should have lightened it up a fair chunk. Gives a bit of an Australiana feel, I guess. So now it's just the final steps of putting some oil on it so that it will not get broken and age and cracked and dried. And overall, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I think it's not a bad restoration job. I would like to do more with the blade, but I don't think I have the sanding belts and equipment to be able to do that. I got a bit of gluey gunk on the blade, which I need to clean off from when I was laminating. Some of the edge pieces slipped in, so I had to push them out. The easiest way was to do it with the blade. That way I get almost the exact width. Anyway, I'm going to go varnish this up now and see how we go. So there we go. After 2 days of effort, all oiled up, hole drilled for hanging, and extra hanging there, so we can hook it onto whatever he's got. And yeah, pretty happy with that. Good first go. Some new mistakes. Let's just see if I can get the camera to focus. Some new mistakes you can see around some white junk. There you go. Around the brass pins from the polyurethane. Also on the spine, a little bit of polyurethane. I'll get over it, I'm sure. And as you can see there as well. But overall, love the colour of this wood when it's oiled up. You can see my hands are dirty as hell. Yeah, chuffed. Pretty chuffed. Can only even see the seam down the side from the glue. On this side you definitely can't. Well, pretty happy with that.